One of the most important aspects of running a Dungeons & Dragons campaign is creating a compelling motive for your party to adventure. While there are many reasons why your players might decide to take up the sword, such as a desire to be virtuous and good or to line their pockets with gold, none are as straightforward and effective as the rise of a sinister villain whose very existence threatens the realm and demands the party's attention. Hello, my name is Crazy K, and today we're going to talk about my homebrew world, Therenor, how the realm's biggest threat, Brohk the Hill Giant, originated, and the choices we made when designing him to create a truly detestable BBEG. This topic was decided on through a community poll, just narrowly beating out Therenor's unique playable races. If you want to help determine what we talk about next on this channel, cast a vote on the next poll. As always, any speed paints you see here are done by Lee, which you can find both on Instagram and YouTube. If you like giant-themed world-building content, check out my other videos, and follow the channel to make sure you don't miss a post. With that being said, let's get right into it. If you've watched my previous videos, you should already be familiar with the World of Therenor. If not, I'll quickly go over it here. Therenor is a realm of tremendous scale, teeming with primordial life. Its trees large enough to house entire cities within their crowns, and its seas stretching onward seemingly endlessly. For the longest of times, this world was solely inhabited by giants, towering humanoids birthed from the soil. Infused with ancient magic, these giants are one race, but their forms have since evolved over the millennia to thrive in the various extremes of this world. These giants all play their parts to ensure the balance of the realm, whether they are aware of it or not. More recent years brought about the rise of small folk, who have been proven to be just as resilient as their giant counterparts. Despite this, Therenor was still an untamed realm, which was dangerous for smaller creatures. Small folk settlements initially hid away in relatively safe regions of the world, but centuries of growth and advancement have enabled them to travel to and harvest natural resources from areas once considered unreachable. Small folk have eagerly been mining, fishing, and deforesting these new regions, funneling the raw materials back to their capitals for trade. Unfortunately, these areas are also claimed by giants, displeased by their presence and lack of care towards the wilds they so quickly take from. As these small folk civilizations continued to expand, the giants of the realm began to feel smothered, leading to occasional hostile altercations. Either side is fearful of the other, and there is an uneasy tension between small folk and giant kind, which only continues to get worse. Most small folk live within the Great Expanse, a vast and windy flatland with heavy sporadic rains and nutrient-dense soil, perfect for farming and rearing livestock. In addition to its temperate climate, ample resources, and lack of major predators, small folk thrive here. Despite their success, many small folk in the Expanse still tread carefully for fear of crossing paths with wild hill giants. Therenor is unique not just for its size, but for its giants, which are heavily reimagined from D&D's current iterations. This is a current series Lee and I are working on, where we create brand new lore and art for these massive primordial creatures. We've already finished Hill, Stone, and Frost giants, and I recommend watching the full Hill Giant video as well as the other giant videos to get a better feel for how small folk and giant kind interact with one another. For now though, we'll quickly go over changes we've made to Hill Giants. In Therenor, the Hill Giants are not the oafish brutes you might be used to in the Forgotten Realms. Instead, they are huge quadrupedal gorilloids, which scavenge the Expanse for anything edible. Native to the rolling hills of the Great Expanse, they are simple, solitary creatures, about as smart as a horse, feasting on grasses, small folk crops, and dead or dying animals, keeping the plains healthy as they wander. Despite their simple nature, some hill giants have the capacity for increased intelligence. Exceptionally smart hill giants, called ambassadors, may even form packs, learn simple words or phrases, or even develop cultures and routines that are passed down to the next generation. While these giants are non-aggressive, borderline passive beasts, they can quickly destroy towns if they suspect stashed food, which is enough cause for small folk to hide away when giants wander near their homes. Small folk have done a sufficient job at diverting hill giants from their villages and farms, but news has spread of a massive pack which roams the expanse, deliberately ransacking towns, consuming crops, destroying buildings, and capturing small folk, dragging them into the plains never to be seen again. This pack is led by an emaciated, wide-eyed beast by the name of Brohk, the hill giant king. Born a measly 90 pounds, the day this runty hill giant was brought into the world was an unceremonious one. Brohk featured many abnormalities for a newborn. What should have been a plump, healthy boy was nothing more than a sickly, pale, rash-covered creature. Its breathing labored, and upper lip cleaved to the nose. His raspy cries fell on deaf ears, receiving only occasional nursing from his reluctant mother. A child of his disfigurement had but little chance of survival, and if not for his voracious appetite, he would have certainly perished. Brohk grew in strength and size as he aged, quickly outclassing his other pack members. Now a massive young adult, he enjoyed a simple life of gluttony in the expanse, roaming the plains in search of his next meal, up until he got ill and could not stomach his food. The ambassador of Brohk's pack believed his sickness to be a bad omen from Soltauger, an ancient spirit worshipped by small folk and giant kind alike as a bringer of both hunger and harvests. To stave the spirit's potential wrath, Brohk was bound and starved for untold years. Driven mad by hunger, Brohk freed himself from his prison and began a multi-day rampage throughout the plains. It was during this onslaught that something awoke within him, boundless intelligence. With the cause of this sapience not clear, and his newfound mind scrambling to process the years of torment it endured, Brohk has turned to fanatical worship, which he believes is responsible for his newfound genius. He continues to ritualistically starve himself in an attempt to get closer to the spirit's Soltauger, breaking his fast only to consume sentient creatures, devouring not just their body, but their minds. The years since his escape, Brohk has amassed his own herd, which far exceeds the standards for hill giants. Slowly, he has conditioned them to view small folk towns and their inhabitants as a food source, which they can easily scavenge for given their numbers. For this, they follow him devotedly, enacting his terrible will across the realm. Brohk's backstory, and to an extent the entire campaign in Therenor, was created in part to protest the ever-present usage of the twist villain cliché. I was personally dissatisfied with how often and choreographed surprised villains appeared in both films and games, and as such I wanted to make a campaign with a clear-cut, irredeemable villain from the very start, who stands out from the rest of the world by bastardizing everything that makes it wonderful. Brohk is a deeply broken, evil being who wishes to see the realm delve into chaos and devour itself. His motives are apparent from the very beginning, preying on the downtrodden and the weak, using forceful coercion and brute strength, and no intervention, negotiation, or persuasion can dissuade him from this path. Physically, Brohk barely resembles your typical hill giant, which is fat, covered in matted furs, and animalistic. He walks and stands upright a majority of the time, only sometimes dropping to all fours to knuckle walk when he wants to move quickly. His pelt has mostly fallen out from his fasts, leaving only a few long, wiry hairs behind. His eyes are sunken and his cheekbones and sharper features made prominent by his lack of facial fat. His sagging, heavy skin that drapes loosely on his gaunt body is a reminder of his unremarkable past as a regular hill giant. The leathers of his robes are stitched together with frayed ropes and decorated with small folk belts, banners, and robes, and his wrists bear broken shackles made from a cattle yoke. The hill giant king is a cunning, monstrous beast who prides himself on being a prophet of Soltauger. He speaks with a fluent and articulate tongue, his words deliberate and deceptively attractive, and his waking hours are spent researching everything he was blind to in his previous state, mainly the various forms of magic one can learn. He is eager to persuade those deemed lost to join him in an eternal harvest, where the strong feast and the weak are feasted upon. Those unwilling to accept his embrace may be indoctrinated forcefully through ritualistic hemomancy, such as a blood curse, which fills the victim with a ravenous hunger that grows more uncontrollable over time. Brohk views himself completely separate from his hill giant kin, and can only feel disdain and pity for them. Though they are both ravenous gluttons, eager to mindlessly consume at a moment's notice, the hill giant king operates on more than just base instincts. He is a thinking, capable creature with specific tastes. Hill giants demolish villages on his command, yearning to fill their stomachs, but are completely unaware of the lives they are destroying. The hill giant king pities this. They cannot grasp the intimacy of taking another sapient creature's life, and to Brohk, this is a waste, akin to devouring your meal without tasting it. Despite the urge to consume them, Brohk has an appreciation for small folk, namely for their intelligence. While he may consider them inferior in both brawn and brains, they are at least aware of the brutality in devouring thinking creatures, albeit uninterested in experiencing Soltogger's hunger firsthand. Brohk will make attempts to convince the small folk he encounters to partake in his practices. He is courteous until faced with extreme opposition or his ego is damaged, to which he morphs into a violent and cruel creature, forcing his prey to submit or simply making them his next meal. Small folk nations are aware of his presence and the exponential increase in hill giant attacks, but his seemingly random path of destruction makes him exceedingly difficult to predict. Multiple years of unconnected attacks have begun to wear on the small folk, reducing trade realm-wide and resulting in mass recessions and increased crime within cities. Brohk is the antithesis of the natural, purposeful order found in Therenor's wilds, and a filthy, stained mirror which reflects smallkind's greed and overindulgence back at itself. His actions directly contrast those of his giant kin. The havoc he causes is both harsh and loose, causing tremendous damage not just to the civilizations he targets, but to the wilds they surround themselves in. The small folk, who themselves have taken this world and its bounties for granted, are shown for the first time what it means to be a resource, harvested and wasted in excess. Only united could the realm overcome this monster, and I am personally very eager to see how my players go about doing this. In the end, Brohk only has one goal: to consume all life in Therenor. Once the small folk have been depleted, there is no doubt the Hill Giant King will continue on to bigger things, slaying other giants, stripping the realm bare, and eradicating ecosystems. It will take a powerful group of adventurers to halt this monster's plans and restore order to Therenor's wilderness. So this was Brohk, the Hill Giant King. If you know Hill Giant lore, you may have noticed some similarities between Soltogger, the rituals of the Hill Giant ambassadors, and Brolantor. Before I really went into depth with Therenor, the game being played in this realm mostly utilized Forgotten Realms' gods, religions, species, and creatures. So much so that Brohk was initially just described as an intelligent mouth of Brolantor. It was only after a few sessions that we end up scrapping the original giant designs, the concept of the Ordning, and the giant gods in favor of our own ideas, though there's still some remnants of the old lore in Therenor somewhere. As we continued to flesh out Brohk and the World of Therenor, we couldn't help but notice the recurring themes of man versus nature and environmentalism that started to form. It was really neat to see how these themes evolved naturally as we worked, and I feel like it opens up the world to plenty of new storytelling opportunities in the future. And for any aspiring world builder or dungeon master out there listening in, I heavily encourage you to sit down and just write it all out. It's very rewarding to see your work take form, and it'll seriously improve your DMing skills. I tend to run very improvisational heavy games, but having a solid base to work off of drastically improves my ability to tell fantastic, memorable stories for my friends. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about Therenor, give us a follow and check out the other videos in the series. Also, leave a comment. Lee and I are always excited to keep the discussion going in the comments section, and we love hearing your thoughts, critiques, and concepts relating to our world. Reimagining Fire Giants is coming next, so make sure you're looking out for that one. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.